Everybody wants the fruits, but they don't realize it's the roots that create the fruits. It's the internal that creates the external. If your actions don't follow your words, then it's doubtful you really believe it.
First thing in the morning, right as soon as you wake up, you have the opportunity to choose how you want to program your day. If you don't make a conscious choice, you're likely going to pick up all the thoughts and feelings of yesterday.
Welcome back to the Daily Mastermind. George Wright III with your daily dose of inspiration, motivation, and education. This is your first time listening. I'm telling you, you're in for a treat. We've got an amazing person here today. As you know, I don't do a ton of interviews. We're going to roll some more out, but we have someone here that I've kind of hand selected that I feel like would really bring some value for you today, because our podcast is all about that daily masterminding. People that think alike, people that want to go to the next level and evolve their life. And Nicole, who I'm going to introduce real quick here, is definitely an example of that. So let me give her a quick introduction and then we'll get her on here. So Nicole's a high performance coach, but she's a chief operating officer for a rather large coaching company. And the reason I chose her to come on the podcast today is because she trains and empowers entrepreneurs to really scale up their life, identify what they can do to create breakthroughs and transformation. But also she's got that operational eye. So she understands the systems and processes that you need. So we're going to get into a lot of details, a lot of her background here today. But Nicole Kernohan, how are you? Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm great.
Yeah, it take a little coordination, right? But we finally got together
Yes.
to plan at the lining. So let's dig in for a minute here. And I kind of just told people a little bit about what you do, but give us the quick backstory on not just what you do, but a little bit about how you got there, because it's important and it's a great story. So I want people to understand the framework and foundation for why you even got into this space of personal development and transformation and business growth.
Absolutely. Yeah, I actually started I got a degree in business, and I started in corporate, in strategy and some operational aspects as well. But, and I know I mentioned this a little earlier when we were chatting, that with my health experience that I had 20
Yeah, talk about
years
that.
ago. Yeah. So I had an episode where I became paralyzed on the right side of my body, right arm and right leg. And I received a diagnosis of multiple sclerosis. Knocked me off my tracks out of nowhere. I was young. And the interesting thing in that moment, which partially explains why I got into what I'm doing today, is that I heard the doctor say, you may or may not regain functionality. You may be paralyzed. We hope you won't be. We can't, it's typically a degenerative condition. I heard those words, but I heard the diagnosis. I did not believe the prognosis. The prognosis being, my expected potential outcome for the rest of my life with this diagnosis, with this disease. And my family thought I was naive, and friends, they thought, I don't think Nicole heard the doctor. She seems to have false hope.
In denial. Yeah.
In denial. And I'm like, what? What even is false hope? Anyone who's, experienced any miracles or created anything of major significance had hope. So it wasn't false. But I respect them. They were looking, whenever you have, we care about our children. We don't want them to not get what they're hoping for. So they were just looking out for me. But because of that perspective, because of that level of belief and unwavering faith, I did whatever it takes. I talked to the nutritionist, naturopaths, also a medical practitioner. There was no point in which I thought, I've done everything and nothing's going to work. And that's a common thought pattern that people do have. I didn't experience that. And long story short, I healed. And there's no cure for MS. So I still have lesions in the brain scan, but I don't have any physical symptoms, nor have I for 20 years. And that experience at the core of me was always in the back of my mind of, wanting to really help people on a deeper level experience things in their lives, in their health, in their business, in any way, really, initially.
Well, and also, I that's huge because I want to just kind of make a quick note and question for our listeners. Everybody in life has major obstacles, maybe not as major as MS diagnosis or things like this, but it really, it makes me want to ask you a certain question. But what I wanted to point out is that it's not necessarily the diagnosis or the obstacle or the thing. It's how you respond to it. You obviously decided, it's like Covey talks about, there's that point between stimulus and response where you can decide, are we going to be proactive or not? And you didn't listen to everyone else and you decided, I'm going to go out and we're kind of cutting through a lot of the heavy lifting, but, find out solutions with fitness, nutrition, whatever it takes. Do you feel like you've always just been kind of a naturally positive person? Because I know people like that as well. Or do you feel like there was your environment that made you that way? What made you decide to just think optimistically about it? Because most people don't naturally go the direction of thinking of the best possible case scenario, right? Like you did. So did you kind of grow up a little differently, or was there a reason that you were thinking that way, or just naturally positive? Give us kind of an insight on that.
A little bit of both of the last two things. I would say that I have always been a generally positive, optimistic person. So that is something that I have experienced from childhood. And I believe part of that characteristic was also because of my upbringing and my parents being generally optimistic. And, so I do believe it stemmed from that point. I had never had a major obstacle like that prior to that point. But
That's huge.
else,
That's big.
yeah.
Yeah.
I just realized something else, George. I also did martial arts for 10 years prior to this, prior to my MS experience, my diagnosis. And I definitely know that created a mental toughness, a mindset, a
That's
body. I was
good.
pretty young when I got into martial arts,
Yeah.
so I didn't fully get it. Like, I didn't consciously understand it, but I was programming myself for 10 years to be able to do more than I thought I could do.
Yes. I thought so.
So,
The reason I ask that question a lot of times is because a lot of times successful people, you're in the business of understanding and dissecting why people think a certain way. So that's good. But a lot of times they don't realize that it is a stacked series of events, rituals, training, seeking knowledge, or even being around the right people. And everything I just said, if you're listening to this show, are things you control. Now, you can't necessarily control who your parents are, but you can surround yourself with people that are positive. You can do things that install mental discipline. You can be someone who chooses to be positive. It's not like your hardwired DNA or not. And so I think that is a big thing. And I think sometimes we go through our lives and we don't realize that we've built the foundation that helps us handle these things. But I still think you make a conscious decision what to focus on. And so you decided to focus on finding out the answers. And so you pivoted kind of into nutrition and fitness. And so pick up there for a second and help the listeners to understand where you went into business along this lines because of this problem.
yes, absolutely. I agree with everything you just shared as well. It is a choice. You just have to make that intentional choice as an adult.
Yeah.
As a child before age 7, right? You're not, your conscious mind isn't quite able to make those differences as much, but as an adult, you do have to make that choice if you want to choose to be positive or who you want to surround yourself with. So to
Yeah.
answer
And I'm
your
sure
question,
you've probably had some down moments too, right? Like everybody thinks, oh, these people sound so positive. Everybody has question moments and down moments. Yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely. And thank you for sharing that, because I do have to point that out sometimes, because I
Yeah.
am naturally optimistic and I'm positive and I see the gift in the problems, right? I see things quickly. I quickly go from stimulus to response, and I quickly will get over the pain, but it doesn't mean I don't have those challenges or those pains. I can quickly move through them. So,
But you
uh,
also have established that pattern, right? So the reason you and many successful people can go very quickly from stimulus to response in the right direction is because you've set the frequency, you've set the standards, you've got the habits, you've got the discipline that's kind of been building up. So it goes quicker. If someone's not there, they have to break that down, right? And then they can choose to go that way quicker through a path, and then they need repetition. But sometimes you can't do that on your own, right?
100%.
Okay,
Absolutely.
cool.
Thank you for also reiterating that for the listeners. I wouldn't want someone to think that it's just natural to, you know, have a bankruptcy or some major financial disaster and just expect yourself to naturally be happy later that
Yeah.
afternoon.
Yeah.
It is a process of training yourself to be able to shift your perspective and make different choices. And I have done that.
Cool.
And I'm very consistent with those habits
Yeah.
to every single morning program myself to
Love it.
see the world that way. And it's possible for anyone to do it. It just does require intention. Yeah.
Cool.
So you had asked
Cool.
about my health journey and business. I can quickly touch on that because it is interesting. Because of my health experience and then business background, I chose to go into my first step into entrepreneurship was actually opening a health business, a retail business, because at the time I thought it was my life purpose. And what I later realized was that it was actually relatively logical because I had lots of experience in business. My parents had owned franchises in retail centers. I had lots of family in retail business operation and ownership. And I had a background in health. So I got into that business with the intentions to help people transform their health. And after it happened pretty quickly, I just ignored it for a long time because I like to say persistence. Maybe it was stubbornness. But I quickly started to realize that I could give people the tools to know what to do. And many people wouldn't do the do. And so
You said that to me when we were talking, and I'd written a note down I wanted to bring up in our interview because I wanted to hear your comment on this. So over 25 years, I've learned from all these amazing people. I never had these amazing strategies and thoughts of my own. I picked them up from people that knew what was going on. And so I created this poster, the Prosperity Pillars poster, which has 12 pillars. And one of them is I focus on solutions. It's the fifth pillar. And what people think of a lot of times is I'm trying to say, oh, just be positive. But here's the thing that I really wanted to point out with your story. You had a problem. You kind of decided to go a positive direction, but you were focused on solutions. You weren't focused on how do I deal with the problem? You were focused on solutions, which is health, nutrition, fit. Here's what's crazy. That's what took you into a positive cash flow career, into a business, into success. So just by simply focusing on solutions with the problem, you weren't out looking for a nutritional career, supplement career, things like this, but focused on solutions to your problem led you there. And so it's really crazy to me how stuff like that can happen, because don't you feel like now the problem actually is the reason you went through this whole path that you went on was because of the problem?
100%. Oh yeah.
Okay. Cool.
I'm so grateful now that I went through that I had that experience, because it is who I am. And I believe it is why I'm here.
And you couldn't
And
even connect the dots of the problem and working with people, because the problem led you to nutrition. You did that. You had a retail operation for years, but you found to really help people better with that, you had to start to work with them to apply it. So it's not 1 + 1 = 2. And it's almost like you had to lead yourself there. Do you feel?
Absolutely. And it's so cool,
Wow.
right? You can connect the dots looking back, right? Steve Jobs.
Yeah.
I love connecting the dots looking back. As long as you trust, but sorry, let me just say this. When you have experience connecting the dots looking back, it makes it easier to trust that the dots will connect going forward. Because I've proven in my own life that I didn't know that next step was going to happen, or I didn't know that door was going to open. I didn't know that person was going to come, but I trusted myself along the way and was willing to take action. It's not just trust, it's trust and then act. And because of that, now it's easier to, when opportunities come, just say, yep, let me check in with that. Yeah, that feels good. I'm going to say yes, and trust yourself. And that takes practice for so many people. They don't trust themselves, right?
Yeah. And practice. And I think one of the benefits of what you do, which is working with high-end CEOs and entrepreneurs and business owners, is it takes practice, and also some times takes reminders. You're not the best at reminding yourself of things you do. Like I would look at your situation, I would say, man, what a gift to be able to say to yourself, and you might be, let's say one day you're struggling on something, for me to be able to say to you as a coach or a mentor, to say, you overcame a MS, a diagnosis, you can overcome anything. Come on, let's be honest. You might be struggling with something now, but no way. So it does help to have that kind of like third party as well sometimes
Oh, yeah.
perspective. But anyway,
Mm.
sorry, I know we try to keep these episodes tight, but we could kind of go down so many rabbit holes with your story. So take us forward now, because you work with, you kind of was in, with the fitness, nutrition and things, you started working with people individually, but you pivoted into a space where you now directly impact and work with entrepreneurs and owners. And so tell us about, not so much like how you did, you can mention kind of how you got into that, but why that's something you're passionate about and what you feel keeps most people back from really, making progress and increasing their success levels.
Well, for 10 years after I had, I will say healed MS, even though
Yeah,
it's not officially, there's still lesions. It just doesn't show itself in physically. Um, for 10 years, I thought it was health and nutrition and supplements. And I believe that was a very important, critical, in fact, aspect of my
sure.
heal. When I stumbled into positive psychology initially was through Bob Proctor.
Mhm.
And when it was through a 3-day seminar. So this was my introduction into this world of the mind. And it was, oh my goodness, I thought, have I been living under a rock? Does everybody know this? Why didn't I learn this in school? And I discovered that most people don't know this. You can access this information, but it is just not taught unless you find it, or today you'll find it more easily than 10 years ago. But it was like an epiphany, like the lights turned on in a dark room. And all of a sudden, I could connect the dots to what I had done in my health. I
Ah,
understood how my subconscious mind, my vision, my self-image, my habits, I could connect all of these deeper things. Because what I found for a long time was I was trying to help people with their health, but I couldn't get them to break the knowing doing gap. They would know what to do and not do it. Or they would know what to do and then believe that they can't do it or think it's not going to work or have all these fears or hesitations. It was all this deep stuff. And I didn't
yeah,
know how to work with that. And so when I
yeah.
stumbled into positive psychology initially, that was like, okay, now I understand what I did in that area of my life. Now I can intentionally, through process and repetition, sorry, help others apply that to,
Yeah.
and even for my own life. I could now be more intentional with that in my business, in my relationships. It was unconscious competent before. Now it's like, okay,
Yeah.
now I can intentionally apply this for me and I can also intentionally help others.
Well,
So,
that's an important piece because I think people need to realize, I'm a back into this, what you just said, but they need to realize that there are systems, processes, and steps you can take to do this in your life. But here's the thing. You and I, one of the reasons I wanted to interview is you and I have a similar paths in the sense that it was business and success and, and things like this. And most people are chasing those things. And it's like Harv Eker says, one of my mentors I've had in the past, he says, everybody wants the fruits, but they don't realize it's the roots that create the fruits. It's the internal that creates the external. The inner world creates the outer world. Your thoughts do create your life. And most people don't understand that first, and they wouldn't know the first thing about how to go about it. But at the end of the day, um, you know, fitness and nutrition absolutely help to create the life where you feel healed. But there was something more deeper that you had to figure out. And as you stumbled across that mindset, you stumble across what honestly, I believe most super successful people know. And that is your thoughts do create your life. Your conscious awareness of what you do can create what you want to have. And that's why people always ask me, they're like, man, you've done business and money and this and that and marketing. And why do you always talk so much about mindset? Because that's where it starts. That's literally what creates all the rest for you to
mhm.
follow through. And so I think that's such a huge point that you lived and went through. So what do you think? Why do most people not create change? Like we talk about it's a positive psychology, but what holds most people back? What is it that's holding people back now that you're working with, hundreds and thousands of people? What are you finding?
There's a few things. It all comes down to their subconscious programming.
Programming.
So,
Yep.
yeah, it's 93 to 97% of you might know these numbers, like your life, your actions, your results come from the subconscious part of you, not from
Yeah.
the conscious part of you. So they may
Yeah.
consciously say, I'm going to do better. I'm going to make a change. I'm going to grow my business, or I'm going to change this habit consciously.
Yeah.
That's only up to 5%. The rest of you operates subconsciously, which means unconscious, habitually, right? You're on
Yeah.
autopilot. You are mostly on
Yeah.
autopilot. And so if your autopilot programming is I'm not good enough, or I'm not fast enough, or I'm not the kind of person who can wake up early, I'm not the kind of person who can create successful businesses, whatever the automatic programming is, which was programmed a lot of it was through childhood, but also through other major
Yeah.
life experiences. It's you got to. Most people, what holds people back is that they're trying to change their life by changing this by conscious effort, and it's like that's only
Yeah.
going to get small improvement that way. You got to change the deeper part of you. And
Yeah.
with my health journey with MS, the reason I now know, but I didn't understand at the time, that I healed myself was because I had a subconscious, deep rooted, hopefully subconscious. I know you
Yeah. Yeah.
understand what I'm saying. Hopefully the listeners can
Yeah.
catch what
Yeah.
I'm saying here. But I had a deep rooted belief and identity. I knew
Yeah.
that I was a healthy, active young person. I knew I was going to get married. I had a clear picture running through a field and picking up my son. This was before that happened. But I had a subconscious belief that that was going to happen. And that's the thing. It's what do you subconsciously believe? So you know what is interesting? I didn't even identify with having MS for many years. Like as
Oh,
soon as
wow.
I kind of healed my physical
Yeah.
symptoms,
Yeah.
I didn't
Yeah.
talk about it. And what do most people do with the diagnosis? They talk about it all the time.
They
They focus
label
on it. They
themselves
think
with
about
it.
it. They
Yeah.
they talk about it. They
Yeah.
complain about it, right? And so they're just recreating the thing that they're trying to get out of. And so, anyways,
Yeah.
that's
And
my
you know
little
what?
thought.
I
It's
think,
for a reason.
you're 100% right. I think, most people are on autopilot and they just don't think about it. And that's because we're wired to be able to automate processes. And so conscious, trying to do things consciously is such heavy lifting. You don't realize that's why, you say things like, I want to do this and do that, but your subconscious is saying, you don't. No, you're not. You're not really that. And your fear of failure and your limiting beliefs and everything are kind of working against you. It's kind of like, I always use this little litmus test with people. They tell me, oh, I want to do this. I want to do that. If your actions don't follow your words, then it's doubtful you really believe it. It's
Mhm.
doubtful you really believe it, because all that matters is if you really believe it, if you really think it, if you really want it. And so, you're right. We spend most of our lives trying to do things that we don't actually truly do the work to do. Now, I know it sounds like a lot of work, because it is to a certain degree. I don't want to make it sound like it isn't, but to really kind of reprogram your subconscious and program your data. But you talk about there's processes and things like this. I'd love to give just kind of a couple of practical, in the time that we have left here, maybe some practical examples of whether it's, rituals or habits or processes that you take people through, just to give them a taste of, like, there are some things you can do to change the way you
Mhm.
think. Do you have anything that kind of comes to mind you'd
Oh
love
yeah,
to share with the
I've
audience?
got lots, but I'll start with just a couple. The Since we talked a little bit about that subconscious mind,
Hmm.
first thing in the morning, right as soon as you wake up, you have the opportunity to choose how you want to program your day.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
you don't make a conscious choice, you're likely going to pick up all the thoughts and feelings of yesterday. And if yesterday wasn't good, then you're going to repeat that. So I absolutely control even the first 10 minutes. It doesn't have to be an
Mm.
hour, it can be an hour, but even the first 10, 15 minutes to be very intentionally, you probably have to set reminders if it's not yet a habit,
Yes.
right? It has to
Yes.
become a habit for it to work. Um, to choose to write down or think about things you're grateful for. Perhaps do a guided meditation, or like guided meditations. Anytime you pick up your phone, that's probably the biggest thing. Is just don't check your email in the first 10
Right.
minutes
Right.
of your
Right. Right.
day, unless you are already so trained to think optimistically and see positive things. Unless you're already trained to do that, then you maybe wouldn't get sucked in. Most
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
immediately get sucked in. So just really being intentional with those first 10 minutes to either practice gratitude, think about your vision, your purpose, maybe do a guided meditation. Those would be a few of the things that I would do
I
first thing in
agree.
the morning.
I think morning routine is huge. And I think I like how you said it. It's intentional morning routine, meaning, guys, listen, you're going to go either on autopilot or you're going to go on a plan you've already decided, but why not be intentional with what you're doing? And I always recommend to people, they hear things like, oh, the ideal morning routine, they try to bite it all off. Like, I'm going to meditate and journal and go work out. Look, find the one or two, three things that are going to affect you the most, that'll help you the most. It might be listening to a positive podcast. It might be listening to a guided meditation so that your mind just starts going that direction. But be intentional, because morning routine, can't emphasize that enough. I 100% agree that that is huge. Is there something else that you want to kind of? Yeah, totally. Absolutely. And the difference is you're intentional versus on autopilot. So at least be intentional with your morning, which I like how you said that.
Yeah. So one of the other things that I'd recommend is, in general, the concept of repetition. Because we talked about shifting you subconsciously, which means on a deep, deep level. You can't listen to an impactful message or read an impactful statement one time and expect that it is transformed who you are. It may be really impactful. In most cases, it's the willingness to go against what you maybe thought in school and read the same thing 30 days in a row, 50, 60 days in a row. Listen to the same audio, not listen to 30 different audios. If an audio message or a podcast really resonates with you, I just be willing to listen to it repeatedly. So repetition is the word. So first thing was morning routine. Second thing is repetition any time of day. It's when you've listened to, only repeat things that are really impactful. Don't repeatedly listen to the news that's going to make you feel like you've had a bad day.
Yeah.
But if you find something that resonates, it's the repetition of it, because that's how you get it into the subconscious. If you hear an inspiring message that makes you feel like, I can do this, I believe in myself, I am capable, I am intelligent, and it doesn't have to be affirmations, but whatever the thing is that you're listening to, if it made you feel empowered, listen to it again and again and again and again until eventually you could hear it in your head without even turning it on. You can say the words without listening to it. That's when you know it's starting to get into it deeper. So that's just a general concept. Repetition.
Yeah, I love it.
Repetition.
No, I think that's huge, because I think repetition is the key, consistency, right? And frequency, because the more often you do it and the number of times you do it, the more it's going to sink in and become a subconscious habit versus a conscious habit. So that's the goal, right? Repetition will help you do that. So I agree with that 100%. Cool. Yeah.
Those are a couple of the things that I
love it. No, I love it. Well, I know, I wish we had so much more time. I know that you have some really effective systems, processes, things that you've taken people through, but I appreciate you sharing kind of your journey, what your thoughts are. I hope that if you're listening to this podcast, people are realizing that this positive psychology and this conscious programming and intention is so important that we could just have that conversation and it would extend into money. It would extend into business. It would extend into your personal life and your lifestyle. So that's one of the main reasons I wanted to have you on. Let me do this just for our sake of time. Tell me where people can find you. And I can put in the show notes a bunch of things, but tell people where they can find you. And you mentioned you had something for our listeners as well. So I'll let you kind of give that information so we can make sure that we have everybody connect with you.
Absolutely. That sounds good. So I would recommend going to NicoleKernohan.com. NicoleKernohan.com. Just for anyone who's listening and doesn't look at the notes. The spelling of the last name is not always intuitive. So I would invite you to go there. I do have an abundance journal. So because I believe in the power of repetition and process in order to change the subconscious, the abundance journal is really designed primarily to help people shift their perspective when it comes to financial abundance. It does apply. Abundance is abundance. It applies to abundance in how you see time, and abundance in health, and abundance in relationships. One of the biggest things I have found with what, and I didn't say this in my original answer, but with what holds people back is their perspective of money. How do they feel that it doesn't grow on trees. And so, there's a limited amount of it. Like, what is your actual perspective around financial abundance? So it's a 30-day journal. It's free giveaway. That's on my website.
Oh, right
And
on.
be happy to have folks, they can print that off and work through that if they'd like. It can be an
Perfect.
interactive
No, we'll put that,
process.
and can put a link in the show notes so they can download that and get it. Guys, this is awesome. So I highly recommend you connect with Nicole, go to her website. I'll put that in the show notes. And in addition to that, download the Abundance Journal. Use that as a way to sort of program yourself and get that repetition. Keep that daily morning routine. Use it as your morning routine to be able to keep you going. Those are all great strategies in order to help program your conscious awareness of where your life is going. I mean, we're trying to give you this, and it's so awesome because you've got the knowledge now, you've got strategies to do with it, and you have a tool. So, I highly recommend that you get engaged with that. I'm sure we'll be able to have Nicole back for those of you that are part of our Mastermind Academy. But other than that, I appreciate you being here today, Nicole. I hope that we will have the opportunity to be able to hear from you again. And is there anything else you want to say before we take off?
I really appreciate you being here, and I appreciate you inviting me. I feel like I could talk about this for hours.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
is who I am and what I do. Like, this is just so in alignment, and I'm so grateful to be able to pour into your listeners today, and hopefully they feel inspired.
Yeah, I'm glad we were able to align and get this put together. So, okay, guys, listen, if you are first time listening to the show, like I said, like and subscribe so you don't miss any episodes. And do me a favor and share this show. People are looking for answers. They may feel like they're stumbling across things and they need more direction. So share the show. Hit me up on the Daily Mastermind on Instagram, Facebook. Love to hear from you. Other than that, have an amazing day, and we'll look forward to talking with you again tomorrow.